We now turn it over to Ryan McEvoy to find out just how victorious athletic teams were. Ryan?
By all accounts, it was another successful sports year at St Ambrose University, as the school closes one chapter and begins another in its long athletic history. Hello and welcome to the Ray Shovlin Show. I'm your host Ryan McEvoy. Beside me, head basketball coach Ray Shovlin. Nice of you to join us.
Great, thanks Ryan.
Thank you. So let's just talk about Sunday. Fell to local rivals Ashford 72-86, but I want to start with the positives. Nick Frazier, 2,000 points for. So it was a fantastic night for Nick, but it must be frustrating seeing him score a game-high 24 points and still coming away with that loss.
It was unfortunate a little bit. We started a little slow. We missed a couple of...
Each year there seems to be a new policy change for Last Blast, but this year's policy change has got students talking, and not in a good way. If you live in the townhouses here, you might not even be allowed in your own backyard. Here. An agreement has finally been made to build an athletic complex on the St Vincent Centre property. However, it's not going to be only a St Ambrose University athletic complex, but a joint venture between St Ambrose and Assumption High School. After the Davenport Mayor Bill Gluber vetoed the SU Stadium project back in July, St Ambrose officials went back to the drawing board, and the idea that came to fruition, selling the land to Assumption High School.
You know, we purchased the property in 2009, and then with hopes to build athletic facilities. Options were always studied elsewhere, but this ultimately is so close to campus, and we're excited to have Assumption take on the property.
We were with Ambrose through kind of the city process, the PID process. When that door was closed, we explored other options and chose to work together to open another door, and that's why we purchased the property. We obviously entered into this agreement to purchase with the full intent of taking care of Ambrose's needs. We're gonna lease it to all the institutions that support us, the Catholic grade schools, and a big part of that is Ambrose.
As a high school, Assumption officials do not have to apply for zoning requests through the City Plan and Zoning Commission, but instead are free to build on land they own however they want, which means that the complex could be under construction sooner than you think.
Perfect world, we would like I think both institutions would like the practice fields completed by the fall.
But what about the changes SAU made for the stadium's neighbours?
And we had 23 conditions that we had made concessions on with the city and also with the neighbors. It's Assumption's property now, and I think they'll look at their needs, but it's up to them now to kind of determine what the concessions were that St. Ambrose had and determine if those fit their needs as well.
Ambrose, I feel like in the previous process, took the high road. We would like to maintain that philosophy of doing the right thing, within reason, within reason.
With the agreement finalised for ground to be broken this spring, a new athletic facility for the Fighting Bees is on the horizon, even if it isn't exclusively their own. Ryan McEvoy, Dateline, SAU.
Now they have numbers.
You might recognise him as the voice of St Ambrose Sports.
Good, and it's an and one opportunity. How about Coach Ray's reaction?
Senior Mitch Widmeyer is not only receiving awards for his work as a play-by-play commentator.
Down there. Griner with it, deep three from the right wing. Good for Sydney Griner. Good to see her get off to a...
The St Ambrose Dome collapsing back in February caught the athletic department off guard. Used as a central location for SAU sports in the winter, many are wondering when the facility will even be back in use.
Best case scenario, we're looking at end of March, early April. We're on a little bit of a holding pattern now. Worst case scenario, we're probably looking into middle to late April.
The collapse, however, does highlight a lack of centralised facilities for SAU sports. Head track coach Dan Tomlin says this puts a strain on the current facilities in Lee Loman Arena, whilst highlighting the need for a central location near the St Ambrose campus. It was a clean sweep for SAU runners. The track and cross country teams swept the men's and women's indoor and outdoor conference titles to become the first programme to win the Triple Crown. SAU is the only school in the history of the conference that has taken home all 3 titles in the same year. The women's soccer team saw a 12-6-3 record take them to the MCC Playoff Championship game. The Queen Bees finished in second place in the last ever conference regular season race. The men's soccer team's strong MCC play helped them to second place in the regular season standings. Head coach John Mannell led the Bees to the second consecutive playoff championship game. In all, St Ambrose teams claimed 9 conference titles and qualified for national championships in 11 sports. There were 7 Conference Coach of the Year honours, 7 Midwest Collegiate Conference Players of the Year, over 160 All-Conference athletes and 22 All-Americans. And SAU boasted 3 academic All-Americans and more than 60 NAIA Scholar athletes. And that's it for our Sports Year in Review. I'm Ryan McEvoy.